how that actually works. As we are going into a match here, I think I'll put my money on Albert Cordobes, though. Just the astounding RC results. It's just you can't really speak against that, as we see Albert right there looking focused as ever with this Domain Overlords deck. Said he chose to play basically Matt Nasa's deck from the Pro Tour that is just quite well tuned and seemed like a good choice. And that's exactly what we see here. This is an aggro killer, but it's not playing against regular aggro, it's playing against Dimir Midrange. So the cards that are going to be important here are the up the beanstalks. Without Fairy Mastermind to punish you for drawing cards with this is the way that Albert can sustain an advantage. Of course, you also still have the 4 copies of Sir, which are going to try and animate these impended Overlords. So even though you can, you impend the Overlords and they come into play in their enchantments, but not creatures yet. Well, Sir turns them into creatures and they become even lifelink and hexproof creatures. So that's the combination that really makes this deck overpower any opponent. And the shell that is surrounding this is a shell with a bunch of white removal spells, and then up the beanstalk as a card draw engine, because you have a bunch of your removal spells, Leyline Binding and Riot's End, that will trigger it, as well as these Overlords triggering it even when you impend them.
I'm excited to see how this plays out. Now let's take a look at Michel's deck list. This is the Dimir Midrange deck, and yeah, here on the screen we see some new cards from Tarkir as well.
Exactly, yeah. Michel, no stranger as well to the Pro Tour scene, did play Pro Tour Ixalan back in 2017 and has been playing Magic for quite a while. 36 years old from Rome here. And we see this list, you can see how tuned it is for aggro decks. We see Gix's Command main deck, Shieldred main deck, Breach of the Schism main deck, Kasi Revenant from the new set, the 3/3 Flying Deathshot Lifelink, Vampire Nighthawk. You can go home and cry because this card is so much better. And these cards are all in this main deck. The most important tool that Michel has access to here might be the Tishana's Tidebinder to potentially blow out an Overlord trigger coming into play, or a temporary lockdown. There's a lot of potential targets for it. As we start our match here, Dimir on the play with a Spyglass Siren.
That already making a little map token. We had the Survey Land getting one of the Overlords into the graveyard.
Yep, I love this map token. Mappa, as it says. And
yeah, Michel, a local here in Italy.
Yeah, not fully local, from Rome, and we're in Bologna, so...
Yes, yes. Local to the country.
Local to the country. And...
ooh, look at this bat, revealing 2 Leyline Bindings, analyze the poll and get loss.
See, yeah, so that's
Overlord as well.
An issue with Deep Cavern Bat in this matchup is that there's so much removal that can target it, and in general, the main deck is interested in just spending its removal to prolong the game regardless. So it's not that easy to punch a hole into this hand the way you might want to do. You could take the cheapest removal spell here and take the Get Lost. You could take away the Overlord, or you could even go ahead and take away the Analyze the Pollen. I think I don't like taking away the Get Lost, because Albert's process here is going to be analyze the pollen, getting a forest, and then playing Overlord on turn 3. If you take either of those pieces, you make sure that Albert can't curve Overlord on turn 3 most likely, especially if you just grab the Overlord right here, because then Albert will have to spend a turn getting playing that analyze the pollen, and then next turn playing the Overlord. This way, Albert can proceed with his own game plan. You do get to, like, that bat is not dying for a little while, but the issue is that the domain deck is filled with so many answers, like, for instance, this Day of Judgment, that the bat attacking as just a 1/1 lifelink is not actually that scary for the main, and Albert is much more happy to just get to proceed with his own game plan here of making sure his mana base works, getting a forest, and having the 3 mana next turn to impend the green Overlord.
That's exactly what he goes for. Now let's see how Mikel can follow up here. Cut down is a card that against Albert, not great. I mean, there's the Zer though, so...
Yes, it's not actually that horrible to have cut downs in this matchup. They will find targets sometimes, but the issue is that oftentimes the Zer will have done its damage, already animated an Overlord, and so it's not certainly not the best type of answer to have. And here we see a map token being cracked.
Yeah, revealing enduring curiosity, which actually was the answer for Michele here on what's your best card of the weekend.
You see Michele playing this Intimidation Tactics new card from Ether Drift, and that was the game plan. So you do the bat, take away the Get Lost, and then you can take away the Overlord of the Hauntwood with your card here. So actually, this is lining up exactly what Michele was planning it to do, making the bat a lot more effective in this way. But there's no third land for Michele, it seems. That map token was cracked in the hopes of hitting a land. Now can only attack for 2, not bring in the bat here, because Michele knows about this Elspeth Smite and doesn't want to give up the bat to that 1-mana removal spell, understandably. But is still allowing Albert to play this Elspeth Smite on the 2/2 flyer.
And Albert taking the chance, going for it, dealing some damage to the Spyglass Siren.
But yeah, with that, Overlord of the Hauntwood's gone. Albert only has a very reactive hand now and can't actually pressure very much. So it doesn't...
Ooh, no land again.
It doesn't matter that much, but Albert actually has no play on this turn because there's only 2 land types. The Flood Farm Verge is not an island, and so the way that Michele has poked a hole into Albert's hand here means that this turn is completely safe to do whatever he wants. Albert can't do anything, and now you can take away this Day of Judgment, which would completely wreck your position next turn. Instead, forcing Albert to take another turn off to play a Leyline Binding on that Deep Cavern Bat, and then resolving the Day of Judgment.
So those Leyline Bindings still in hand. Albert really needs an Overlord here.
This is of course all well and good with...
Oh, look at his top deck.
But what is that?
It's the Overlord, the white.
Oh, that's a pretty good top deck here. Because yeah, the issue with these bats is that like, oh, it looks like nice disruption, but it's just 1 damage in the air a turn, and it's just not very impressive. And the main deck has so many good options for top decks that Michele would rather like have some way of advancing the game state more, like having his land drops and actually being able to put pressure on, rather than just doing a bit of measly disruption. This is just extending his own doom, essentially. And here we see another Overlord top deck there, which will generate the Everywhere token. That's a land token that has every basic land type, and so it combines beautifully with Leyline Binding, turning that into a 1-mana card.
His Overlords are definitely very strong, and I mean, when it gives you 2 mana types, it's a dual land. So what do you call these everything land?
It's... Wait, what do you mean? What do you call it? It's everywhere?
Yeah, everywhere, but you have like, it's a dual land.
Oh, yeah, it's an utopia.
Utopia.
Yeah, that's what we usually call that type of land, when it has 1 of each basic land type.
And I mean, these Overlords are starting to also cause some pressure because those imprint counters start to...
Yeah, because Michele is not putting on any pressure here. Albert just gets to sit there and take down these Overlords. I wonder if Albert is thinking about not running out this Overlord here into a potential Phantom Interference, but there's only a single copy in Michele's deck, so it's not that scary. Let's see if that 1 copy is indeed present here in Michele's hand. Of course, there's 5 spells. We know that because there's no land-ups being made, so the chances of it being that one-off is higher than it normally would be. And now Albert sees the chance to maybe you could just start chugging in with 1 of these insect tokens. Of course, Michele has that cut down and will be able to find a target here dealing with 1 of these insects if he so wishes. Actually, Michele deciding to be a bit more patient with that, drawing another spell. Still has to pass the turn once again, and this is a bit of a slaughter. It's not what you want to see in your quarterfinal here.
Definitely not. Now Albert as the turn here. A couple of lands, Leyline Binding in hand as well. Three impending counters on the Overlord of the Hauntwood, 2 on the Mistmoors. Attacking here with the 2/1 flyer.
Yes, starting to get a little bit aggressive. Like, you do have these Leyline Bindings. You can stem the bleeding if anything bad is to happen. The thing you basically want to avoid is you don't want to be hit by Kaito, which is starting to be enabled by Michele here, but would require that you It will require that one of these bats is sacrificed to the insect token, and so it's not even that big of a deal, even if Kaito hits. And now we are moving into the territory where this Overlord comes off suspend, and that is a Xur off the top.
Ooh, that works pretty well with those Overlords.
Perfect timing, but we see Michele actually being patient there with that cut down, is going to find a target for it now. And I wonder if Albert is going to animate the white Overlord here, or just doing it on the Overlord of the Hauntswood, because the white Overlord is coming off suspend anyways in a moment.
That's right. So let's see what Albert decides to do here. Tapping 3 lands for that Xur.
Gotta make sure you tap the right colors. Of course, this deck is basically a green-white deck splashing this Esper card, because that's just how the mana works out in current format. And is deciding to animate, the Overlord of the Hauntswoods. This lets Michele do the play where you cut down the Xur, and then you can go for a Floodpit Drowner, tapping down that Overlord. But the issue is, once you do that, the Overlord of the Mistmoors is still ready to be played. We see here the player picking the Overlord halfway out the sleeve. This is to indicate that this is now a 5/5. Forget what's printed on the card. It's a creature with mana value equal to its converted mana cost.
Exactly, so not a 6/5 right now, a 5/5. And that's the tap effect.
Tap down, and with a stun counter, I wonder if the players are going to remember that to indicate it in any ways. But I wonder what Michele's plan is for this Overlord of the Mistmoors coming down in a moment. There might be a go for the throat in hand, helping him stabilize against that card. But if that card gets to attack, that'll be so much of an advantage for Michele. Okay, so we see the Leyline Binding here coming down, taking care of the Floodpit Drowner. The reason you'd want to do this is that the Floodpit Drowner can also act as a removal spell, shuffling in the Overlord of the Hauntswood. And at this moment, it's almost like Michele is the control deck here, because Albert is the one presenting threats, and Michele is the one with a ton of cards in hand. So it makes sense that you want to deny Michele from using his cards to remove yours, instead just waiting out this Overlord of the Hauntwoods, as it now loses its stun counter, is going to be able to attack next turn.
And of course, Leyline Binding being so good with this everywhere land.
Yes, that is a nice combination. So let's see if Albert even gets to attack with this Overlord of the Hauntswood. Michele is keeping his cards very close to the chest. That is a standard...
go for throat.
Go for the throat. Yes, it's from the showcase.
Secret Lair? No.
No, this is not Secret Lair. This is one of the game store local ones. I know because I got one. The one standard tournament I played at my local game store on a Saturday event.
Oh, you got a good one then.
Well, it's very... It's very pringly at the moment, but here's a insect token coming in there, dealing 2 damage to Michele, and the other one back on defense, still trying to prevent a good chance to deploy a Kaito. Of course, I guess Michele at this point can just hardcast the Kaito, but it's not very impressive when the opponent has so many creatures in play. And remember, this Overlord of the Hauntswood as a 5/5 is going to untap now. That counter you see on it is still an impend counter. That is a time counter. That does not matter. When the last counter is removed, the Overlord will still remain a 5/5. Because it was animated by Xur and not by its own ability.
So now Albert wants to go for combat, but Michele is stopping things there.
I wonder if there's another Floodpit Drowner, or maybe another go for the throat. I think that is exactly what we see there. A very dark card at the top of his hand.
Asking for maybe what's the counter?
Oh, just asking for the size of it. Yeah, just clarifying, because it is a bit unclear, of course, when there's a counter on it, and it looks like it's a 7/6, but it is actually a 5/5. But what it is, indeed, is
the
just
graveyard.
Dead.
And attacking here with that 2/1 insect.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this, Michele kind of being the control deck, and I think he has successfully managed to control the board state and the situation here, denying Albert a bunch of cards. Of course, there is still a lot of removal spells accessible for Albert here.
But look at this top deck, another Overlord of the Mistmoors.
Wow, so this requires a counterspell for Michele. If he has one, this is a fine position. If he has none, it's...
It looks like only black cards in hand, but I might be wrong.
I think you are right. I think you're right. So Albert actually is moving to combat right now, aiming to attack with both insects and then play the Overlord. But now deciding that if the worst case scenario where Michele has the one copy of Phantom Interference, you might get really punished by attacking with both of these, enabling a Enduring Curiosity to come down and draw some cards. So this is a bit of a risky play. Albert might have wanted to play the Overlord pre-combat for that reason, but to like make sure that it actually resolves before you make this attack.
Phantom Interference is unless you pay 2, correct?
Correct, yeah, and there's exactly 7, right? So Albert might just want to just impend it and not hardcast it.
So here just impending it, making 2 tokens.
And this is guaranteed to resolve at this point. No way Michele can track with that, except for the one copy of Sishana's Tidebinder, actually.
Oh, that's correct.
Was indexed. So that was a bit of a risk there from Albert, but that is not the card that came down. And because you also decided to impend it, you still have mana up to deal with... I wonder if that was a missed impend trigger because the turn was passed before it was removed. But you still have this leyline binding up, so you are protected from a... we're still at the end of turn, that's what's going on, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Michele hasn't done anything yet. That's what's happening.
Paying 4 mana.
Just making a fish token.
Paying 1 life.
Right, so this is a hammer shark? Hammerhead shark?
Yeah, I mean, insects versus bats and fish, who's going to win?
I think the insects are kind of like, you know, these moths are of another world. I think they are going to dominate this sad pondfish. Even if I just said it's a hammer shark, I think it's more like a...
Oh, Zor.
Oh, wow, a second Zor here. That is huge. Being able to animate this Overlord of the Mistmoors and this leyline binding. Of course, there is more removal spells available in Michele's hand in the form of Anoint with Affliction. Another card that is not at its best in this matchup, but still finds purchase against this Zor. But this is not the best of positions. Michele is missing land ups for a little bit in the early game and is now trying to stem the bleeding.
Just as a reminder, this is a very important match for these players because if they win, they are then 1 win away from qualifying for the World Championship.
That's true. And even moving up the prize tiers, this is also 3 RC invites for the winner of this match.
So the top 4 qualifies not only for the next RC, but for the next 3 RCs and the Pro Tour, of course. So a lot of qualifications in stake. Sir?
Sir, this is a Wendy's. So yeah, landing this card, animating the Overlord, and again, you can use the Anoint with Affliction to then remove the Hexproof from the Overlord, but do you have enough removal to contain all of this, including all of these insect tokens?
We will find out. And while Zur makes the other Overlord smaller, it makes this one a little bit bigger.
Philippa, are you good at animal sounds?
No, please don't make me do that.
Can you make the sound of a moth?
No. No comment.
That's the sound that this battlefield is making at this moment.
What do bats do, though?
They use ultrasound, which I can't produce with my human mouth.
And what about a fish?
They say...
Simon Nielsen, not only a professional Magic player and caster, also sound imitator.
I'm trying to hit the right sound, but I can't make it sound like a bubble.
Okay, look at all these insects, though, and things are getting pretty dicey here for Mikel.
And yeah, pretty dicey in the sense that there are also not that many dice, but a lot of tokens and permanents in play. And these, you see again, these 2 things picked halfway up the sleeve. That is a 6/6 leyline binding with a bunch of keywords and a 7/7 Overlords of the Mistwords with a bunch of words, as well as 6 insect tokens. This is so much for Mikel to deal with. He does have the single copy of Gix's command, right? That's the way you can get out of this situation here. If you can manage to land a Gix's command, you can actually sweep the board here.
That's true.
And so I think that's what Michele is thinking about. And knowing that one of these bats is going to die to that Gix's command anyways, actually both of them might end up dying to it. So you might as well just chump block them away and save a little bit of life, because you are only at 10. So it's it's not a kind spot to be in. You can use the fountain port here, sacrificing the fish to get to draw a card and see if you can find something else good off the top.
Simon, what is your favorite Overlord?
I think I like the black Overlord because it goes in my commander deck.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Also puts things in your graveyard, so that's nice.
Yeah, I really like graveyard decks. I was so close to playing the black-green graveyard deck, actually, that 7 Faust debated the last Pro Tour with.
Oh, the bean deck?
Yeah,
that's
black
a pretty good one.
beans.
Black beans, I like that one.
It's a good deck.
Yeah, we didn't see it this weekend.
No, it's a pretty bad deck.
It's not. I mean, it top-aided the Pro Tour, right?
Yeah. To be fair, 7 did go 6-0 in limited, so that helped.
Okay, that's fair.
That's fair. But I do like the deck, so... And maybe it's just biding its time, you know?
Looks like Mikhail here survived the combat damage, going down to 6, so let's see if that Gix command is in hand.
Is it coming?
Or
Is it
draws.
coming? Is that Gix's command? That is not. That is a Kaito. Wait, there is a Gix's command already in hand. Michele was setting this board state up. He is, as I mentioned, the control deck. But is it enough? Because you can make Albert sacrifice... You can make Albert sacrifice the Overlord, the Mistborns, and all of the insect tokens, but the 6/6 Leyline Binding will still stick into play, and...
That's enough.
Yeah, that is enough.
Exactly enough. Wow. I mean, what a game here, showcasing how this Domain Overlord made it here into the top 8, and Zur is a great card, Overlords are a great card, Leyline Binding as well. Didn't even have Beanstalk.
Didn't even need the Beanstalk. Yeah, I actually wonder there. I think Michele could have used that Anoint with Affliction, not to kill the Zur, but to kill an insect token, saving himself 2 points of life. And that would have, because the Zur would die in the Gix's command anyways. So that would actually have saved him where he could be at 8 when he cleared the board and not die to the attack of the Leyline Binding.
That's true, because the X-Proof didn't really matter there.
Yeah, exactly,
with the Gix
yeah.
command. You're correct.
So, of course, still in a pretty bad spot at 2 life versus, I don't know, like 30-something from the Domain player and having to grind out that game. But so in some ways, it might actually be okay that it just ended in the way it did, so you didn't have to sit there for too much longer.
Now we do have access here to sideboard, so let's see Albert playing quite an interesting sideboard that ballot for some discard decks like Pixie. Now, what do you think might enter here against the Dimir Midrange deck?
Yeah, so there aren't that many clear options that are good. I think you want the another copy of Elspeth's Smite. This card is incredible against, especially Enduring Curiosity. That's when it finds its best target.
Oh, yeah, because it exiles.
Yeah, but even all the like smaller creatures that the Dimir deck has. And then you want to make sure you have enough answers for Kaito. So I'm not sure if that includes any of these sideboard cards though. Not many direct answers to Kaito. You don't want High Noon, you don't want Rest in Peace, you don't want Elish Norn, you don't want Obstinate Bailout. Maybe Besa comes in, but it's still not that good of a card. I could see this Rakshasa's Bargain making its way into Albert's deck here. It's very similar to the 1 copy of Stock Up that Matt Nas played.
And this deck here is very good at being flexible with the removal. So the Get Lost is good, for example, to remove Kaito, Leyline Binding as well, but it can remove any kind of non-land permanent.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I guess in that sense, Albert is actually fully prepared to deal with Kaito and doesn't really need many more answers. I do wonder if these negates are coming in. Depends a little bit on what is in the Dimir sideboard and which things you might want to counter. So let's take a look in a moment here at the Dimir sideboard.
So let's see here what Mikhail is playing and what are the options sideboard against this Domain Overlord deck. And 2 Ghost Vacuum, 2 Tishana Stylebinder, Shieldred, Fairy Mastermind.
Yeah, the Fairy Mastermind is, like, that's exactly the one I mentioned, is one of the better cards in the matchup. Michele decided to register just a single copy, just in case there was a Domain player in his way, and now he's sitting right across from one. So I think all of these counterspells, the 3 steps ahead, the negate, the disdainful stroke, are going to come in, and Fairy Mastermind is going to support this plan. Tishana's Tidebinder also working perfectly with that. On top of that, you also have the Duresses and maybe even the Intimidation Tactics, getting rid of Overlords or Zur. I'm not quite sure about the Intimidation Tactics, because there aren't that many creatures in the Domain deck, and it could very easily whiff. But if it hits, it's going to hit a high impact card.
A lot of one-offs in this sideboard.
Yes, and I love it. I love a sideboard that is a messy sideboard with a bunch of one-ups and a lot of, you know, creativity to move around.
Yeah, that's true. So definitely Mikkel here is going to be able to pick and choose what's going to be good against this Domain Overlord matchup. And Domain Overlord taking game 1. As a reminder, we are currently in the top 8 of the Ultimate Guard Regional Championship. These players are already qualified for the Pro Tour, and now they are fighting for their spot in the World Championship, first and second place. And of course, if they win, to be declared the champion of this tournament.
Absolutely. I do wonder, it's always quite tricky when you're sideboarding with these blue-black decks, or in general black mid-range decks against Domain, is how many answers for Sir do you leave in your deck?
That's a good question.
Because it's very tempting to just board out all of your cutdowns and just leave in the 3 copies of Go for the Throat and have all sorts of like the gates and counter magic, etc. And that leaves you quite vulnerable to just losing to that powerful 3-mana creature, which dodges negate and whenever you don't have a Go for the Throat at the ready, actually usually multiple Go for the Throats are needed to deal with both the Zur and the follow-up creature. So we'll see what Michele decides to do here. Of course, some of his threats can also act as pseudo removal in the form of the stun counters from Floodpit Drowner and Kaito. And we'll see him potentially remove these Preachers of the Schism. He's definitely boarding out Karsi Revenant is what I expect to happen, and boarding out some number of those removal spells. We'll see exactly how many. I wonder if he's boarding out Gix's Command, that is a way to deal with the White Overlord. And then there are these Preachers of the Schism, which maybe can be boarded out for more reactive cards, but it's also possible you become too reactive if you board out all of them.
Curious to see how Mikkel is going to balance all of that. Simon, I have bad and good news for you. Which one do you want to hear first?
I want to hear the good news.
The good news is that a lot of people are watching the stream right now.
Oh, that is great. How many people? Wow, that is so many people. Oh my God. I love being
on
here
YouTube
with
as
you
well.
And my 2,000 closest friends.
Hello everyone, let us know where you're watching from. Hopefully you're enjoying the stream all weekend long. We for sure having a lot of fun here. Now, do you want the bad news?
No, I can't hear bad news.
Okay.
It's physically impossible for me. It just goes in the one ear and out the other. I can't hear it.
I'm going to tell you anyway.
No, wait, no, but I can't hear it.
The bad news is that all these people heard you make mod sounds.
That's good news.
I'm just joking with you, Simon.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I'm here for. Why do you think they hired me?
Oh yeah, we need to get Simon Nilsson on the boot because he knows how to make those mod sounds.
Yes.
That's exactly what they thought.
Let's see if Arne or Martin can make the best moth impersonation.
I have a feeling they're not going to try.
I'll get them to try.
Okay.
All right, this is my promise to you, Chad. If there is, so it has to happen like this. Albert has to win this match and move on.
Okay.
And then an Overlord has to be played in the match that Martin and Arne are covering. If that happens, I'll try to make them make moth sounds.
And then Chad will vote who does the best mod sounds.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds great. Now let's get back here into game 2 as these players are taking a look at their hands. And now we do have Mikkel on the play. Starting here with the land pass, we see Beza in hand. Oh, up the beanstalk.
Yeah, so the up the beanstalk is going to change the texture of the game compared to the last one. The last one, Michele almost had a chance to like actually out-control Albert and grind him out of threats. It was very close to that happening with that Gix's command. Up the beanstalk being involved changes the dynamic completely, because it means that in these sorts of games, you can never, ever, ever out-control the domain deck. They will just have enough cards to outpower you no matter what, and you need to get under them.
Okay, second land here, passing the turn. Not
Michele has the perfect answer to Beanstalk, though. Look at him being ready with this Fairy Mastermind. He is putting it in front of his hand and so ready to just slam it down in response to the up the Beanstalk, getting to draw a card.
Yeah, if you draw a card, I draw a card as well.
It always feels so good when you do that. I can tell you, it is a nice feeling.
Albert cannot be the only one to get all the value. Now, Albert considering here what to do.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a chance you're not supposed to play the Beanstalk here. And he decides to decline on the Beanstalk, not wanting to run it into a counterspell or a Fairy Mastermind. You look, Michele, so disappointed to not get that play he wanted with the Fairy Mastermind, deciding to not play out the Mastermind into a potential removal spell, just being passive, right back at you. And then here's a discard spell, Intimidation Tactics. Does it find a target? It does. There is a Beza hanging out in this hand. Wow, this is a beautiful play here.
Hi, Beza.
Both players declining to play a spell on turn 2, positioning themselves better for a later spot here. I wonder when Albert is going to try and land this up the Beanstalk. It might actually be in quite a while. Of course, one really cute thing about this Rakshasa's Bargain is that it has mana value of 6, so it also triggers the Beanstalk.
Beanstalk is just a fun card.
It's just a fun card. The fact that now that we don't see it that much, I think it's a fun card. I think last Pro Tour, when I was covering, doing the live coverage at MagicCon in Chicago, shout out to any one of you who were there and saw that one. We had to cover a domain mirror in the semifinals and then a domain mirror in the finals. And that was, realized the best way to do that was to just not talk about the games at all. just talk with the audience. It was way better.
I mean, I'm sure the audience had a lot of fun. Those are always so much fun to be part of. And I'm sure you also gave a lot of booster packs there as well.
I love throwing packs at people. If you're at a MagicCon and we're doing this event, you should absolutely try and check it out and show up on Sunday, because it is great fun. Last time it was with Andrea Mengucci and Tanon Grace.
Oh, nice.
Great time. We threw around a bunch of big dice and you had the captive audience. Nice.
Love that.
So yeah, Albert again just being patient. Maybe trying to play the up the Beanstalk when he has 4 lands.
Ooh, look at that
He
Kaido.
can pay for Spell Pierce and Phantom Interference. There's a Kaido, which Michele could just tap out for, and is again not choosing to play out the Fairy Mastermind, despite knowing that there is no Get Lost in the hand of Albert.
So playing that Deep Cavern Bat, let's see what Albert has in hand.
Well, it's the same cards as before, but also a Leyline Binding. Let's see here, he's going to respond to that and play the Leyline Binding off the Hedge Maze and the Shadowy Backstreet. That is 4 land types, so this is just a 2-mana removal spell. And you can't hit the bat here. What this means is that now the bat is already gone, so it can't get to exile a card at all, because it says until it leaves the battlefield. And we all know it's the same cards as before, so essentially it just reveals the hand to the opponent. Michele already knew those cards, so nothing has changed. And now Albert has this Overlord of the Hauntwoods and can play this, but not really a reason to. Would rather take this opportunity to play out the Up the Beanstalk. And now finally, Michele, so patient with this Fairy Mastermind, gets to play it out here and get his card draw, because there is no instant speed way to clear an untapped Fairy Mastermind.
And I think both players drawing a land here.
Sure, that's perfect and nice. So I wonder if this is a turn where you're going to try to develop a Kaito here. Of course, if you attack with that Fairy Mastermind, Albert is just going to immediately rights end it before you get to Ninjutsu the Kaito. So Michele, knowing this, is not going to attack with the Fairy Mastermind and leave those rights ends not able to be cast there. This is it's fascinating how these players are playing with each other's mana and trying to make each other walk into their traps.
Yeah, and I mean, Rights End not only taking care of the creature, but also drawing a card in the process, thanks to that Up the Beanstalk.
Exactly, yeah. So it is quite a good idea to not allow Albert to use that card whenever he pleases. I wonder if this is the turn where we see an impended Overlord of the Mistmoors drawing another card of this Beanstalk. Of course, Albert having the advantage here, but it is quite awkward to keep drawing cards into this Fairy Mastermind. It is a bit of a scary proposition. And I wonder if he's instead attempting to play this Rakshasa's Bargain on Michele's turn, because that will also trigger a card draw. But since it's on Michele's turn, the Fairy Mastermind won't trigger off that.
Yeah, so we see here the Bargain on the screen. New card from Tarkir.
Yes. It's almost a stock up. It puts the rest of it's instant speed and puts the rest of the cards in your graveyard, but of course requires you to play a very special deck in order to be able to cast it. See here, Michele just animating the Sanctuary, and look the way he did this. He didn't tap the Sanctuary to animate itself so that it's never tapped and never enabling those write-downs to be cast. Here's a Disdainful Stroke. What a great card to draw here, and can actually even counter the Rexarch's Bargain if Michele wants to do that. And here's a Vigilance creature coming in, playing around those Rides Ends.
Oh, but tapping it now.
Oh, I wonder for what. Oh, and then here, now in the blocker step, bouncing it to his hand with the Kaito. The Sanctuary is already in hand because it's part of Kaito's ability cost to do this. So there was never an opportunity for Albert to use this Ride's End. This is beautiful play. I'm really loving what's going on here.
Yeah, me too. I mean, showcasing a lot of experience with this deck. Now we do have the bargain there, drawing a card.
And so I wonder if this is in response to like before we moving in response to the activation ability of Kaito. I think that is what's going on here. So yeah, drawing a card from Beanstalk. This is not triggering the Fairy Mastermind. Now we get to look at the top 4 and put, wow, this is a stacked, that's 2 Thirst and 2 Overlords. So whatever you put in the graveyard, Michele is gonna know that he's in trouble.
And Michele is like, what is happening?
Yeah, why would you put those cards in the graveyard? But now it's Michele's turn to resolve the ability of Kaito, surveilling 2 and then putting 1 card in the hand and 1 card in his... Well, surveilling 2 and drawing a card. Yeah, you don't necessarily put 1 card in the graveyard.
Okay, so let's see what the top deck here is for Albert.
And if there is a way to deal with this Kaito, of course, it should be at 4 counters, comes in with 4 counters. That's another green Overlord. So there's a bunch of Overlord variety here. And I wonder if Albert is just going to go for the Impend Overlord of the Mistmoors here as a way to pressure this Kaito. A lot of cards in hand for both players. Albert might even need to go to discard step after playing out his turn. No, I think he is fine.
That Fairy being very awkward here for Albert. Now there's Zur with the possibility of animating Leyline Binding.
That's true. That's another way that you could attack that Kaito. But with all of this mana available for Michele, I wouldn't necessarily count on that working. Of course, there's also the Disdainful Stroke in Michele's hand, which was recently drawn. And that could be a huge blowout if Albert decides to go for that Overlord of the Mistmoors. So has to tread very carefully. These Rides End are just being trapped in Albert's hand. By the way, Michele is playing this game so patiently, positioning himself as well as possible. This is a great game.
I mean, it is definitely a great game, and showing how these players got so far, because it's not only just the deck that you choose, but also the way that you play it, and that's showing here.
It looks like it is the Overlord of the Mistmoors walking right into that 1 copy of the Disdainful Stroke in Michele's deck, and that is going to come into play here. Michele, of course, first drawing the card from the Fairy Mastermind, checking if there's a different option you'd like to do, and just taking a damage here. By the way, note that, oh, this Sanctuary is not a creature anymore. Yeah, it got bounced and replayed, so no harm in tapping it anymore at this junction. But Disdainful Stroke, taking care of that Overlord, and now this Kaito can once again get in and attack and draw another card. You could even get to play an Enduring Curiosity here, drawing yet another card off that, but you might want to play it a bit more passively and just have more mana available.
And slowly but surely, this Kaito applying pressure to Albert. That is down now to 14 life.
And the second Enduring Curiosity picked up there for Michele, and you're just passing there with a grip full of cards. Both players stuck up on cards, but Albert is the one without a board state. Michele is the one who's challenging right here. Having the, I would say, upper hand in the current situation, but Albert has a lot of tools to wiggle himself out of this. Just needs to find some way to answer this Kaito.
Let's see what Albert decides to do. Tapping 3 mana, we might see here that Overlord being impended.
It is indeed an Overlord, and there's a Tishana's Tidebinder here, which could potentially counter the trigger of the Overlord. It's not going to be very impactful, so it doesn't seem to be the thing you want to do at this juncture. There's also a negate, which definitely doesn't work at this point here. So yeah, just letting the Overlord happen here. It's just ramping out a little bit. It's not very scary. The scary card is that Sir that is also lurking in Albert's hand. And almost face out to Michele because there was a serve put into the graveyard earlier from a Rakshas's bargain, letting Michele know that there must be a second Sir in the hand somewhere. And here we see just another Overlord. Albert just decides that right now I just don't have the space to be able to contend with this board. I'm going to let Michele play another turn, draw another card here, and do whatever he pleases. And I'm just going to set up my own mana to slam that Sir next turn and take over the game with that one.
So we do see here the Enduring Curiosity. So now Michele is going to be able to draw even more cards. Now, how many cards are too many cards, Simon?
I think 15. I think 15 cards is too many cards.
Okay, so Michele's still a bit far from those 15.
Yep.
But getting there.
Yeah, he does have a second Curiosity in hand, so could actually play that and draw 7 cards this turn, which is completely unnecessary and is not going to go for that play. Instead, finally allowing his Fair Mastermind to get hit by removal, putting Albert down to a measly 5 life. I even wonder if actually this Kaito was supposed to go +1 on this turn, making an emblem and also making that Soulstone Sanctuary more threatening down the line. Because you do have enough cards, but you might not need so much. You might rather want to pressure the life total here. Michele deciding to try and find exactly the answers he's going to need to come ahead in this game. And now that his creatures are tapped, Albert actually has a field day with these rides and being able to remove creatures and draw cards. Is it too late here? We see a Duress going to take care of one of those rides ends, but still leaving that Sir available in the hand.
And so taking care of one of the bright ends, as you said, Zur still in hand. And I mean, the Zur is really good, also giving lifelink to creatures. But at this point, with the amount of cards that Michele has in hand, I'm sure there's an answer in there.
Yeah, like honestly at this point, Michele is the one with more cards than Albert. He's just been drawing more, and he has more gas, it seems, because this is a 4-land hand from Albert. It doesn't actually have that much good going on. The only good thing and the scary thing here is this Sir, but you might not need that much more to take over a game. So I wonder if Michele has the resources he needs to get around that Sir and make it less of a problem.
Playing Fountain Port here.
Oh, and there is that 3 steps ahead available to counter that Sir. He just needs to make sure he has enough blue mana, because all of these Fountain Ports and Soulstone Sanctuaries and Swamps are getting in the way of having enough blue sources to do everything he wants.
Okay, tapping 1 blue source here.
Yeah, so you can do
Spyglass
this,
Siren.
and you can still play 3 steps ahead, even on the mode where you get to draw 2 and discard 1, as well as countering a spell here. So that seems to be Michele's plan at the moment. You can let Albert use the write down. That's not the end of the world, and you just hope that the next 2 cards from Albert aren't that impressive. Michele discarding to hand sides here. What an impressive show of drawing cards here, and what an impressively played game here. We'll see if Albert can top deck something after getting his Sir countered here. Is there a way for him to get out of this position? You can Rides End this Curiosity, but you're still facing down very much lethal. Even with the Kaito emblem, you need more than one answer to wiggle yourself out of this situation.
And we might need to have a game 3 here, because things are not looking good for Albert. Let's see what he's able to do here, tapping 3 mana.
I wonder if he brought in the gate. If he did bring in the gate, you could respond to this 3 steps ahead and Rides End on the Curiosity. And then you can, try to see if you can top pick the negate, because that's, I think, the best answer for his current situation.
But that does resolve.
No, it hasn't resolved yet. That was just the Pain Land resolving. As you see here, Albert responding now with Rides End on that. Is it a negate off the top? It is not. It is another land. 5 lands in hand for Albert, and he has run out of stuff to do. Is picking up his lands as he's facing lethal by so many angles from Michele here.
Simon, very impressive play here by Michele, like all game long, playing very well and showcasing a lot of expertise with the deck, even on the way of tapping the land, as you said, when it was a creature, not tapping it so he wouldn't get killed by Rides End. Beautifully played.
Yeah, I really want to highlight that early game there where we saw the song and dance of that Beanstalk and that Fairy Mastermind. Albert was thinking about playing around Spell Pierce and Phantom Interference. That was not the card that that Michele had in hand. Instead, there was this Fairy Mastermind, which normally you would expect to just be played out proactively and just sit there on the battlefield. But instead, Michele, by not playing it, kind of helped work into the mind of Albert that he did indeed have Spell Pierce and Phantom Interference because there were no good targets for it. He never had any of those cards, but by being patient and playing in the way that his opponent expected him to play, you kind of make the bluff more strong.
Love to see it. We are getting now a game 3, and things are going to change now with Albert on the play. How do you think things are going to be different when the Beanstalk player gets to play the Beanstalk before there's a Fairy Mastermind and so on?
Yeah, that's a huge interaction. Of course, again, all of these cards are just one-offs, so it's not a guarantee that we'll see the Beanstalk line up against the Fairy Mastermind or the Spell Pierce or the Phantom Interference because these cards just aren't that many copies. But because Michele's deck is able to dig so hard and look at so many cards as it's playing out its threat, the Kaito and the Enduring Curiosity, it is able to find the pieces it needs, and in this game it certainly found a lot of these counter spells. Actually, it found Negate, the 3 steps ahead, and the Sinful Stroke, and Fairy Mastermind. All of the 4 blue cards in the sideboard came up in this game, and they were all clutch to Michele winning the game. So I think Albert has to hope that he doesn't face as much pressure in this scenario, and as always when you play this domain deck, just hoping to curve up the Beanstalk into Overlord of the Hauntswood. If he can get to play in a way where he doesn't have to be too reactive and can just play proactively towards his own game plan, that is better because the Dimir deck is quite good at punishing opponents trying to play reactive into it because it has so much trickiness.
And let us know, tweet chat and YouTube chat, who are you rooting for, Domain Overlords or Dimir Midrange? I mean, I'm rooting for both.
You're rooting for both?
Yes.
Is that after seeing Michele play this game?
Yes, I'm completely unbiased.
Well, what do you mean unbiased? Wait, you really like the blue-black deck?
I do.
Okay, that's great. I'll pick Albert then.
No, to be fair, I'm just sad that we don't have a Golgari deck, so this is kind of the most similar.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It has the most cards intertwining there. But overall, I'm really happy with the decks we are seeing here in the top 8. I mean, 4 different decks, lovely to see. So showcasing a lot of fun archetypes. For the people at home watching, we had over 1,000 players qualifying to be here yesterday. We have 8 remaining. On day 2, we had 150 players. Now, the decks that are still on top 8, that made it to the top 8 are, of course, Dimir Midrange and Domain Overlords that we just saw. We actually have 2 Dimir Midrange decks. We have also 2 Izzet Prowess, 2 Mono Red Aggro. That's it.
We have 3 Izzet Prowess, 2 Mono Red.
3 exactly,
yeah. So it's, 3 Izzet Prowess, 2 Dimir, 2 Mono Red, and 1 Domain. That's the top 8 of this tournament here. We are currently watching the upper bracket, 4th seed versus 5th seed in this tournament. 2 players that I don't think we've gotten to see on the feature match yet. And we're also going to watch the other leg of that bracket, the 1st seed versus the 8th seed, in a moment here with 2 other players we haven't gotten to see much.
Exactly. The other matches that are going around are Izzet Prowess versus Mono Red, actually twice. And we also have the Dimir Midrange versus Izzet Prowess.
Yes.
Who do you think is favored to win? Simon, just looking at the deck list, I would say Izzet Prowess just because it has 3 copies.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we just choose a deck, easily it's going to be Izzet Prowess most likely to win. But if we choose a player, I think maybe Albert can take this down depending on how his matchup is into these Izzet decks.
It's going to definitely be interesting to see. I always love to see this players survey as well. We were talking about it before. How the players qualified to be here. In this case, Albert qualified from last RC Prague, finishing top 16. And as we said, Albert had 7 RCs where he participated, and he did 2 all of them. That is incredibly impressive. Did you ever play an RC, Simon?
I played 2 of them.
Oh, how did you do?
I went 2-3 and 3-4.
I mean, not bad. Could be worse.
It could be worse. I wouldn't know about not bad.
Look, at least you didn't go 0-4.
That's true. I wouldn't know anyone who would go 0-4 at an RC.
I did, Simon.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you break my heart.
It's okay. I didn't prepare too much. I was like, do I cast this RC or do I play it? And I was like, I'm qualified. I'm going to play. I get on camera. It was just bad. Let's move on. Nothing happened. Nobody 0-4. Let's start here with the survey land, putting a card on the graveyard.
And there is no up to beanstalk from Albert here, just a Besa and a Leyline Binding. Looks like a very land-heavy hand here, and seems like a mulligan for our domain player. Is that the chance that Michele was hoping for to capitalize on this situation? Michele getting to play this deep cavern bat, and it's going to reveal that Albert doesn't have very many secrets.
Yeah, just Leyline Binding, Besa, and 3 lands.
And it's a 4-mana Leyline Binding. Albert has no plays before turn 4 with this hand. It's quite a slow one, but it was indeed a mulligan to 6.
And I love this alternative art on this deep cavern bat. I mean, just this version. Very nice.
It looks very scary. Looks like
does.
it could, that it could bite you.
Bats
Like,
usually do.
it's not like some bats are really cute, and this is not one of them.
That's true. But it's scary, so... Ooh, top like
Wow, that's
land.
4
That's
lands
rough.
on top for Albert there. 2 lands available into the graveyard, 2 lands drawn for turn. Not what you want at all. It's not even helping this Leyline Binding be cast on this turn, because that was just another forest. And
Ooh.
wow, I mentioned how these deep cavern bats aren't great in this matchup. And it looks very impressive here. It still isn't that good, because this is the house of cards I'm talking about. If Albert top decks a sweeper of any sort, he is going to be in trouble, but I wonder how many sweepers are even in Albert's deck post-board.
I mean, this is very difficult here for Albert, drawing a Leyline Binding from the top.
At least this lets him free the Besa if he wants to. The question is, do you want to run out the Leyline Binding right now? Or do you want to hold it for an Enduring Curiosity down the line? If you hold it, there's a chance that it gets hit by Tishana's Tidebinder, and I think Albert figures that he just can't risk that tempo swing here. So instead, playing it out now, right into Spell Pierce, and just clearing out the bat that has the Leyline Binding. Yeah, so this makes sense, because if there is indeed an Enduring Curiosity, you will have an answer for it.
Nice play here from Mikel that draws a land here for the turn. From
Mikel also doesn't have that much gas here. Only an Enduring Curiosity and 1 other card in hand. Deciding to hold on to the Curiosity here now that he knows there is a Leyline Binding coming. And instead playing out, what is his last card? It is a Preacher of the Schism?
Yeah, it's a pretty good one.
Oh, this is also a nice outright Preacher. And here we go. That is a Sir, but he can't cast it at the moment. No access to black mana.
That's true. That's where the Everywhere land usually is so good.
Yes.
Helping not only with the Leyline Binding, but also fix our mana.
Deck really doesn't have that many black sources. One of them is in a graveyard with that shadowy backstreet. And other than that, there is the Analyze the Pollens that can go get a swamp. And there's the green Overlords. So how do you proceed from this scenario here? Are you going to choose to ignore the Preacher of the Schism or not? Michele deciding to play out this Preacher, knowing that Albert only has 1 removal spell left. And the reason he's doing this is to preserve that Enduring Curiosity for something later. So he's pointing at this Preacher saying, do you want to kill this? Is this the one you want to kill? And Albert is having a big old think, because you might just want to get back that Besa and be able to trade with the Preacher with that card down the line. And also Besa allowing you to draw a card. I think that's actually a reasonable thing to do here. Just getting rid of the bat here and letting the Preacher do its thing.
Difficult decision here. We see Albert laughing, and that Leyline Binding definitely going to hit the board. The question is where. This Preacher will also start drawing cards.
Yeah, it's
has more life.
definitely scary to let your opponent untap with Preacher here, but think that if Michele does have this enduring curiosity, it is very, very scary to leave him without the ability to play a base here, because the base could lock down the board and not allow the curiosity to roam free as it is right at this juncture. So Michele can land this curiosity here, can draw the cards. He knows that there is no more removal spells, at least face up from Albert. Albert having such a hard time figuring out how to use his Leyline Binding is kind of indicative that he can't have another removal spell. So the question is now for Michele, do you just main phase this Enduring Curiosity, or do you play it end of turn like you normally would? It seems like he's going to play an untapped land here. Does he have? Oh, the risky move here. Just attacking with the bat, and here comes the Enduring Curiosity. Enters the battlefield. Bat hits Albert, and that is a card draw for Michele here. The card drawing machine is online. Drawing another land dose. Michele, nothing but lands. Albert, nothing but lands. Who can draw something relevant? It's an up the beanstalk. That's not relevant. It's just one extra card, but it's cool.
I mean, it can lock down a lot.
If he draws the right then here.
Oh, that might be the best follow-up for a
That is such a good sequence there, and I think Michele deciding not to play a Restless Reef on his last turn could be a punish here, as he's not able to attack with that manland on this next turn here.
Leyline Binding would be a great top
yeah, that would be completely insane, but it's not that. Oh, that is a second Leyline up the beanstalk. That could be good, but not at the moment. Right now, the important bit of this is the Everywhere is enabling Surge to come down, and that will animate these bindings and this Overlord. And potentially that can be enough to swing the game back into Albert's favor. Let's see if Michele can draw some sort of answer to this situation. 1 card, 2 card. Is there anything good? There is a discard spell. Intimidation tactics. Getting rid of that Sir.
Okay.
That was a huge step up there, but his hand is only go for the throat and lands at the moment. He is playing that Risen Reef right now, is presenting 9 damage next turn. Oh, that is a Sir. You heard the crowd behind us. What a big rip. This is intense. This is insane. I love this kind of magic. This is fireworks when you're asking for it.
This is Thoughtseize bug in real life, Simon.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I do love me a good Thoughtseize bug. I've always been on the good side of that one.
And Zur enters the battlefield here. Now let's start animating these enchantments. They're going to be huge.
There is the Go for the Throat, of course, hanging out in Michele's hand, but I can only clear the Sir. So the question is now, even with Sir gone, the things you animate are going to... They're going to not have lifelink anymore if Sir is gone, which means it's not that easy to raise the current situation. But you are, if you animate both the Leyline Bindings, you are attacking for 12, and Michele can only gain 1 life off the bat, going up to 20. Oh, okay, but now we got the updated life totals. So Michele actually being at 24 is a huge difference maker here, because that means that he can't. You can't win in 2 turns. And instead, Albert is actually going to animate things on defense in this situation here. So I wonder if he's going to animate an Overlord and a Leyline Binding. It's quite risky to animate the Leyline Binding, though, because that will allow a second Go for the Throat to free whatever card is under it. But Albert just figures that he has to do it. He has to put up these blockers, so he stops the card drawing from Michele and has to pass the turn here. It's so funny that that 1 point of life is making all the difference here for Albert to not go for the line where he attacks with 2 Leyline Bindings.
Deep Cavern Badass flying, so that's going to attack for 1, heal for 1, draw a card. Thanks to that Enduring Curiosity. Flood Pits.
Flood Pits Drowner, and very aptly named in this situation here. Oh, that is another Deep Cavern Bat, taking away the Up the Beanstalk, and Flood Pits Drowner on the ready to lock down another thing. This bat is actually quite good right here as another flying card draw. Can we draw something good? It's just a land.
That is not good at all. Albert really wanting a spell that will trigger that Up the Beanstalk, start to get more and more value. Or at least something that removes one of these bats.
I wonder if Michele here can just play the Flood Pits Drowner on his turn, animate the Risen Reef, and attack with everything. It is a bit of a risky move in some sense, but the payoff is huge. You'd get to pick up 4 cards from the top of your deck, potentially finding a counterspell and locking up this game.
Yeah, let's see what Michele goes for here.
Also dealing 8 damage to Albert if you go for that line. But Michele is being quite patient here, not using that Flood Pitch Drowner just yet. There's a Kaito.
Ooh, what does Kaito represent here, Simon?
I don't know. It might just want to lock down one of these creatures. You could also just play it post-combat. It might be better using it as a card draw engine, but Kelly here is using it to deal a bit of extra damage, putting that up the beanstalk back into hand and hitting for 4 damage here. Albert down to 7 life. Michele drawing 2 more cards and then can activate the Kaito for even another 2. Still has the Flood Pitch Drowner in hand, still has that Deep Coming Bat. He bounced back, and there's a Shield Red.
That's going to put a lot of
huge draw.
pressure.
This is Michele navigating himself out of this crazy bad matchup.
And I'm checking, and whoever wins here, it's going to play either against Mono Red Aggro or Izzet Prowess, depending on our other feature match goes. Now, this is a difficult situation.
Using the Kaito just to lock down the binding. He says, I actually have enough cards in my hand at the moment. I can play out this Silent Storm Tamer. And I think Michele is tasting blood here. Albert needs to top deck something incredibly good right now to not be in trouble, and this Leyline Binding should not be untapping. It does have 2.
Yeah, I mean, the Leyline Binding should be too stunned to speak, or in this case, to untap.
Yes,
it looks like
it is tapped here, but there was a Leyline Binding off the top, which will clear one thing and draw another card for Albert. So the show must go on. What do you get back here? Are you going to clear off this bat that has a Beza on it? Is that a good move? There's still 2 flyers to contain with, so it might not be the best play, but Albert gets a little bit of information before he decides what to target with the Leyline Binding.
Leyline Binding, okay. Draw. Let's see what the draw is. Taking some.
Whoa. Okay, Rakshasa's Bargain is going to draw a lot of cards for Albert right now. So he's going to respond as well to his own Leyline Binding, playing the Rakshasa's Bargain, and informing his decision even more on what it is supposed to target. I love this sequencing from Albert here. It's having 3 cards, playing the Rakshasa's Bargain, drawing another card of this up the beanstalk. Michele just looking at
analyze
this
the
going
polling.
on. It's an analyze that can get maybe something good, but not at the moment. There is a Day of Judgment. Can you play it in this instance? There's 2 copies of Day of Judgment.
3 mana available.
Day of Judgment, pretty bad in this situation, because it's going to kill his own Leyline Binding, putting another threat back into Michele's board. And there's also this Kaito that's going to survive. There's this Risen Reef that's going to survive. Day of Judgment, actually just bad.
Not the easy situation here for Albert.
Albert has not played a land yet for turn, right?
I don't believe so.
Yes, has not played the land for turn yet, so can play this Day of Judgment, can use this Leyline Binding to get rid of the Kaito. But the issue is that then at end of turn, Michele can flash down that Flood Pitch Drowner and animate the Restless Reef, and that is going to be lethal damage. So he will die if he goes with his Day of Judgment. Instead, what can you do in Albert's seat? Especially as that Flood Pitch Drowner is going to threaten to tap that Overlord.
What an intense game here for our first top 8 match.
Absolutely. I wonder if he can analyze the pollen for anything good, but I don't think he can. Yeah, because he doesn't have black mana at the moment, so he can't go and get another Zur, which would actually have been quite good here. Not because he can animate anything, but just because he can give lifelink to this Overlord. I guess it's still gonna get tapped, so it actually wouldn't even matter that much. I think Albert can't find a way out of the situation. Let's see if he pulls a miracle out of his hat that I am not seeing.
Let's see. I mean, Albert is here for a reason. Played very well into this top 8. And let's see if this is the end or not.
Checking out the power of this Risen Reef. If Michele has no other cards, you are actually safe to go for this Day of Judgment play and using Leyline Binding on that Kaito, because there will be a 2-power Priest and a 4-power Risen Reef, letting you survive at exactly 1. So I think this is what Albert's going for, hoping that Michele has nothing, but his Flood Pitch Drowner is going to drown his hopes of a World Championship invite here.
Let's see that happen. So Leyline Binding there taking care of the Kaido. Now there's the Flood
Playing the Flood Pitch Drowner now is such a big win for Albert.
Because now he is able to Day of Judgment.
With this Day of Judgment, and that's exactly what he wanted to have happen.
Oh, very well played here. Attack.
Wow, Albert not dead after all, but he's going to go down to 1 life, and there is a Shieldred in hand. Does Michele have the mana to both attack with the Risen Reef and play Shieldred? I think he does.
So that is now an enchantment.
Oh right, it's just the Deep Cavern Bat that's coming back. It's not the Preacher of the Schism. I was wrong about which card was under which Leyline Binding. That's actually a huge difference here. Because well, it's actually not that much of a difference, because it's still 5 power in play.
Plus 2 from Shieldred on the
from Shieldred. So I think, despite all of this craziness that just unfolded in front of our eyes, I still don't think Albert has an out here, but Michele is going to make absolutely sure that he cannot mess this up.
So let's see if the land is there. Untapped land is all Michele needs.
Let's have it. Place the Shieldred, animates the Risen Reef, attack you for 5, put you down to 2. Do you have a way to gain life at instant speed? And there is nothing for Albert here, just shaking the hand. Wow, what a game.
Congratulations to Michele here on winning this game with Dimir Midrange and being our first player advancing in the top 8 into the top 4. Congratulations. And Simon, what a match we had.
Yes, that was incredibly well played by Michele. Big congratulations on this quarterfinals win against